Since its introduction at the onset of 2010, the Nether has been an integral part of Minecraft, not only providing a welcome change of pace in the form of an entirely new dimension, but also extremely useful resources to continue progressing through your world, with some of these even being required to complete the game. But over the past decade, the Nether has transformed from a basic primitive addition to an already primitive game to a fully fledged universe, complete with its own ecosystem of monsters, rare items, and dangers around every turn. In today's episode of Minecraft Uncovered, we explore the evolution of the Minecraft Nether. The oldest ancestor of the modern Nether dimension was added very early and very abruptly, without any form of teaser or plans that I can find announced before it was added. It just sort of happened. January 7th of 2010 brought version InDev 0.31, which has since been lost to time. It was this version that introduced the idea of some form of underworld, with a hellish landscape included in the brand new map theme selector, simply nicknamed Hell. A bit dark for such a lighthearted game, so it's good that this was changed. At this point in development, the Nether was extremely bare bones. I'm talking fire didn't exist yet levels of development. Essentially, the Hell theme was just the normal world theme with slight changes. All water was replaced with lava, grass was replaced with dirt, the sky was turned black, the clouds turned red, and the entire map was dim and gloomy. But not everything was negative. To balance the dark, dismal, dangerous world, healing was abundant in the form of mushrooms scattered across the surface, which were much more common in Hell-themed maps than in normal maps. Hell was removed at some point during InfDev, which lasted from February 27th to June 30th of 2010, though the exact update it was lost is unknown. A lot of fans were left displeased when the feature suddenly disappeared, but it wasn't gone for good. In fact, it would make its return just a few months later. Notch mentioned a potential reintroduction of the Hell on September 18th of 2010 on his Tumblr blog, but in a very different manner than before. Instead of a map theme that would be forced onto the entire world, he wanted it to be a separate dimension from the rest of the world that would be accessed through a portal, originally intending it to have the practical use of fast travel based on a book series known as Wheel of Time that he had been reading whilst working on the game. Details about this new dimension would slowly leak out throughout the month of October, with portals, soul sand, ghasts, and zombie pigmen all discussed in text, and he even published a development screenshot that showed netherrack and glowstone in the new terrain. The name was changed several times over this period as well. Notch realized that Hell was a bit too dark of a name, and it didn't accurately describe this new underworld dimension. Early on, he considered calling it the Nexus, which was quickly replaced with the Slip. This name, the Slip, it almost made it into the final cut of the game, with other Nether-related terms being adapted, like Slipgate instead of Nether Portal. We can actually see this version of the Slip in a few online videos because Notch sent exclusive pre-release versions to various gaming magazines like PC Gamer on the day before release. When the day finally came though, he made a last-minute decision to change the name to the Nether, where it stayed ever since. Until the official release of Java Edition, the Nether was scarcely updated. It received support for multiplayer, the infamous exploding bed mechanism was added, and the distance of lava flow was increased compared to the overworld, which I didn't know until today. But that was the extent of progress for nearly a year. But come September of 2011, a very important month in Minecraft history that I've mentioned on various other occasions, Nether development was back in business. This time around, it was being handled by Jeb, who had joined the team just over a month after the release of the original Nether. With this new development, we also had new teasers, this time being on Twitter, Jeb's social media of choice. He would feature 2 screenshots of the new Nether Fortress structures on the 16th and 19th, as well as mentioning 2 new mobs on the 21st. Just one day later, the Beta 1.9 pre-release, also known as the first official release of Minecraft, was sent out to the public. Among various features that have become staples of Minecraft, such as villagers, snow golems, mushrooms, and strongholds, this release would bring in the new updated Nether, complete with Nether fortresses and the new blocks they were made of, as well as netherwort, blazes, magma cubes, gas tiers, and gold nuggets, setting the groundwork for brewing potions, traveling to the end, and more. The Nether had been transformed from a barren landscape with sparse resources to one that was budding with activity, with fortresses providing infrastructure and new mobs to help defend them, bringing a whole new world to explore. The update was received incredibly well, and the few parts of the Nether that players thought of improving would receive player-made updates to add extra functionality, with mods like the More the Nether adding in tools exclusive to the Nether, corrupted blocks, new crops, and more. Minecraft had been ushered into a new era, with the Nether completely changing the way that the game was played. Whereas before, Minecraft was simply an open-world sandbox with no final goal where you would just build and survive until you got bored, now a story was forming. And when the end was added just days later, requiring you to go to the Nether to gather the materials needed to visit it and complete the game, players were ready to take on a whole new adventure. The Nether was now developed to a point that Mojang was happy with, so development was slowed down quite a bit, but the Nether would continue to receive decently consistent updates over the next 8.5 years. If I'm being completely honest though, I did know how to structure this update section, so I'll just list off the changes as quickly as I can. Silk Touch allowed water to be brought into the Nether in the form of ice with the 4th Beta 1.9 pre-release, then got removed 2 weeks later. 1.2.1 allowed the torture of snow golems in the Nether, so that's great. 1.3.1 allowed nether wart to be grown in all dimensions, as well as adding an incredibly small chance of bringing zombie pigmen into the overworld through nether portals. I was going to just gloss over the actual method the game uses to calculate when they're spawned, but to be honest, I spent way too long trying to understand it to not mention it, so I'll just put a timestamp on screen if you're not interested in the nerd stuff. If you do want to hear the numbers, I will explain to the best of my ability. So, in single-player worlds and any smoothly running multiplayer worlds, the game runs at exactly 20 ticks per second, or 1 tick every 0.05 seconds. Chunks, which are pieces of the map with an area of 16 blocks wide, 16 blocks long, and 256 blocks tall, also follow this rule, as chunk ticks are a part of the game tick, at least most of the time. There's apparently some super complicated way to determine whether they're measured together or separately, and I don't care enough to look into it, not that I would understand it. Anyways, each chunk has 16 subchunks, which are 16 block cubes. Every chunk tick, each chunk section has a certain amount of blocks randomly chosen. On Java Edition, the default is 3, but the random tick speed game rule can change this. Then, each one of those randomly chosen blocks is given a random tick. In most cases, the random tick doesn't affect anything, but certain blocks do use it for various block updates. The most common implementation is in agriculture, with crops, mushrooms, vines, leaves, farmland, cacti, sugarcane, kelp, bamboo, chorus flowers, saplings, and sweet berry bushes, all potentially growing, uprooting, or spreading if they receive a random tick. Also, since when is there bamboo in Minecraft? However, agriculture isn't the only use for random ticks, and among other mechanisms, like fire and grass spreading, these can also affect the obsidian blocks of a nether portal. In easy mode, there's a 1 out of 2,000 chance of a zombie pigman spawning on one of these random ticks. In normal, the chance increases to 2 out of 2,000, and on hard, the chance increases to 3 out of 2,000. That means if my math is correct, which let's be honest, it probably isn't, the average chance of a zombie pigman spawning each tick from a basic 5x4 portal on all default settings is 0.00102539%, meaning that it will take an average of 97,254 ticks, or 4,862 seconds, or 81 minutes for just one zombie pigman to spawn. Okay, now that nerd time is over, let's continue on to the other updates. 1.4.2 added wither skeletons, my personal favorite mob, as well as armor and swords for zombie pigmen and nether travel for all entities. 1.4.6 brought nether brick slabs, 1.5 added nether quartz ore, 1.5.1 added faster lava and hidden lava, which I don't think I've ever noticed before, 1.6.1 added chest to nether fortresses, the music update, which was a part of 1.7.4 but apparently wasn't released at the same time, added 4 songs exclusive to the nether, 1.7.2 and 1.8 added commands allowing you to place water in the nether, 1.9 removed nether fog and added it back 2 days later for no apparent reason, as well as disabling nether travel for ender dragons and withers, which was apparently possible, and 1.10 added rare enderman spawns to the nether, as well as magma blocks, nether wart blocks, and red nether bricks. But then, mysteriously, updates went silent until 1.13. The community mostly thought they were just busy on other parts of the game, but behind the scenes, Minecraft was slowly inching closer to the famous Nether update. 1.13 technically isn't where the Nether update released. In fact, it wasn't even close, but it does seem that this is when they started to dedicate more effort to it, releasing a few features early for whatever reason. The biome name and ID were changed from Hell to Nether, a much needed change that somehow evaded notice for nearly a decade. They also added what the wiki describes as vertical air cavities, or what I and everyone else would call ravines, which could sometimes be partially flooded with lava. 1.14 added nether brick walls and red nether brick walls, slabs, and stairs, and after 1.15 added bees and literally nothing else, it was time for the big reveal, 1.16. This update brought the dimension we all know and love today, and by we all, I mean just the people that aren't staying on older versions for PvP, or modding, or servers. Wow, Mojang has done a really good job splitting their player base and then not fixing it even after they've had literally half a decade to do so. But anyways, this is by far the largest Nether update in the game, and easily one of, if not the largest overhaul in the game's history. Just to name the very basics, there were Crimson Forest biomes, Warped Forest biomes, Soul Sand Valley biomes, Basalt Delta biomes, Hoglins, Piglins, Striders, 4 different types of bastions, Nether Gold ore, Ancient Debris ore, new music, and even a material stronger than diamond known as Netherite. The update drastically changed gameplay for the vast majority of both new and veteran players. For example, Minecraft speedrunning, which I plan to cover in a future video, switched from immediately rushing to the Nether with next to nothing to grab your blaze rods and leave to deep breath. First, grinding enough iron to grab an iron pickaxe along with the 4 iron needed for a bucket and flint and steel, then rushing to the Nether to mine nether gold ore to craft gold boots so that piglins don't attack you when you trade with them, and then you have to either scrounge up a ton of gold from gold ore or find a bastion containing gold blocks because you need this gold to attract piglins to drop random items for you, which can sometimes contain ender pearls which you need to combine with blaze rods to create eyes of ender, which you can then finally use to return to the surface and search for, then enter the end dimension to defeat the ender dragon and complete the game. And yet, even with that sounding extremely convoluted and difficult because it is, it also half the amount of time needed to run the game, making it possible to start and finish a Minecraft playthrough in under 15 minutes on a random seed or just 2.5 minutes on an optimized seed without the aid of any glitches. It's genuinely incredible how much that one community alone has benefited just from this one update, not to mention the tens of millions of other players that have seen its effects firsthand. This update absolutely revolutionized the way that the Nether was played, and really the entire progression of Minecraft survival in general, in a way that had never been seen before and likely never will again. Now, that's where Java Edition's story comes to an end, but I feel like there's something else related to the Nether that needs to be addressed, coming from a very old version of a separate edition of Minecraft. One very close to my heart, one that actually got me into the game in the first place. It's not Bedrock Edition, that's been pretty much on par with Java as long as it's existed. It's not the console or handheld editions either, which received the Nether upon release in each case. No, this change comes from Pocket Edition Alpha, released all the way back on August 16th of 2011 for the Xperia Play, later extending to Android, iOS, Windows, and Fire OS. But back when it was released, the Nether was in a very rudimentary stage. Remember, this was before Jeb's first big update. The dimension was essentially in Alpha 1.0.0 on Java Edition, which was in and of itself quite early in development, even if it was the most updated version of the game at the time. Over the years, Java Edition's Nether would be updated, but for various reasons it would be quite a struggle to migrate that into Pocket Edition. So, until September of 2015 with version 0.12.1, the Nether didn't exist, and it supposedly wasn't even in development until late April of 2015. So, what did we have for all those years? Well, even back then, Pocket Edition was the most popular version of the game, so leaving out the Nether entirely wasn't an option. The mobs and blocks that spawned from it were pretty essential to certain farms, structures, and so on. So, in the place of the Nether dimension, a substitute was created, known as the Nether Reactor. A feature that was put in place for exactly 3 years, from September 5th of 2012 to September 5th of 2015. Never seen again in Pocket Edition, and never seen whatsoever in any other version of Minecraft. So, for those that don't have the incredible nostalgia this brings for myself and many other OG Pocket Edition players, let me explain the construction, concept, and content of the Nether Reactor. Your quest began by sourcing the materials to craft the Nether Reactor core, which was 3 diamonds sandwiched between 6 iron ingots. You then needed to scrounge up for all the gold you could find, as you needed 36 ingots to turn into gold blocks as part of the base of the reactor. And keep in mind, this was all on the old world type of MCBYT, one that was just 256 blocks wide, 256 blocks long, and 128 blocks tall, halving the height limit and completely doing away with the infinite borders that help add a feeling of never-ending possibilities in the game. It was very possible that you either couldn't find the resources needed or had already mined and used every bit that there was, and if so, that was it. No Nether Reactor for you. But assuming you did get the rare minerals required, you still had to build the reactor, something that required a YouTube tutorial for pretty much every one of us 10-year-olds trying to build it. You started with a 3x3 layer of gold block corners with cobblestone filling in the remaining space. You then stacked a nether reactor on top in the middle, adding cobblestone diagonally from the block but never directly to the sides, and finished it off with a cross of cobblestone centered in the middle. The pattern wasn't actually difficult to remember, but it was never mentioned anywhere in the game how to actually make it. Once this was all finished, you could finally activate your nether reactor, or at least attempt to do so. Even if you built it correctly, it would often just so happen that all the players in the world weren't close enough to activate it, making it next to impossible to use these on most SMP servers, or worse, the nether reactor was built too high up, and you had to move the entire structure down, often losing your nether reactor core in the process. But even once you did get it working, the struggles weren't over. Upon tapping the nether reactor, the core would begin to glow red, morphing all the other blocks of the reactor into glowing obsidian, so say goodbye to your gold. A massive spiral of netherrack would then grow out of the ground, and items would begin to rain from the ceilings, not just those exclusive to the nether, but also some that could have been already crafted in the overworld, like bows or bowls. You would then be surrounded by zombie pigmen and hope to God that you could take the heat, because they started attacking you without any provocation, and they did damage that even the most experienced Pocket Edition player would be scared of in an enclosed space like the Nether Spire. After 45 seconds, the reactor was destroyed, the core would darken, items would start to despawn, and your world would fall into darkness for days. The nether reactor is arguably one of the most unique artifacts from the early days of Pocket Edition, and really the early days of Minecraft entirely, but for many, its memory has been lost to time. I hope to bring it back. That's it for the video, guys. Hope you all enjoyed. I was actually just starting to work on the outline for this video when I saw that the Mr. Epic made a video on it, which just happened like 5 times now, but I thought I could try to expand on it quite a bit, seeing as I have the unique perspective of an OG Pocket Edition player as well, and there were also some parts of the history that he didn't really cover that much. I plan to make a video on the evolution of the end soon as well, so assuming nobody beats me to it, expect that in the coming weeks. Also, I just wanted to mention that I'm thinking about streaming on Twitch. I set up everything there, and I'm going to be doing a few tests over the next few weeks just to see how things go. My name there is MCBYT Live. I'll put a link on screen and in the description, so go follow me there and I should be streaming soon. But that's about all I have to say, so have a good one, guys. Peace.